The main event of the week was the blowing up of the Kakhovskaya hydroelectric power station by Russians. Moreover, the echo of this terrorist attack told a lot both about the terrorists themselves, and about the sympathetic, good Russians, and the ever-concerned public of the West. It turned out that this is not yet the red line, after which it is necessary to bring in peacekeeping troops. What exactly should be this very line? Anxious muzzles in the UN was silent. But all sorts of Lenny Volkovs and the mold of ambiguous, who joined them again, howled that we will never know the whole truth. From what? Here's the truth right now. Norwegian scientists recorded seismic tremors, confirming that the destruction of the Kakhovskaya hydroelectric power station occurred precisely as a result of an explosion. By the way, since November 2022, who has been boasting about the mining of the Kakhovskaya hydroelectric power station? And who now whispers in telephone conversations that they were ours, they just didn't calculate something there. Unfortunately, this not only incriminates the Rashists, but also confirms the thesis of their absolute insanity. And if the Kremlin psychos have adopted a scorched earth strategy, then no one will be spared. Putin decided to take revenge on Ukraine for his disobedience, and on his own bodies for their stupidity and inability to fight. The Kremlin shushara does not consider Ukraine a country at all, but she is ready to go very far in matters of revenge. In response to the words of former NATO Secretary General Rasmussen that some countries of the alliance could deploy their troops in Ukraine if Kiev is not provided with security guarantees at the Vilnius summit, Medvedev threatened with hypersonic strikes against Europe. The Kremlin has long been delirious about a clash with NATO. It would like to commit an act of final, makach, in our way, in the proletarian way, who will kill whom in the end. There is no rationality in this, but it was not there initially, with 2% of world GDP. It's just that the ringleader and his lads were very offended by the West for not coming to court with their criminal habits and began to bully. Putin quickly entered the USSR 2-0 assemblage point, and his doorway, having gorged on propaganda blue, rushed to destroy Ukraine with all available means, which were not enough to take Kiev in 3 days. Now they have mined the Titan plant in the Crimea and the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. And if they arrange a couple more technogens, it will not seem enough to anyone. And after all, they will blow it up and say, and we haven't hit the red button yet. The Western press writes that further American assistance to Ukraine, as well as the international reputation of President Joe Biden, directly depend on how successful the Ukrainian counteroffensive will be. The deadline of the Democrats has been mentioned before. Biden promised that with his arrival in the White House, the era of Putin will end. It's time to keep the promise. By the way, the good Russians also perfectly understand where everything is going. That's why they knock on the thresholds of the European Parliament in the hope of chatting up the European establishment and letting them steer in the Kremlin. But while Putin, marked with the Hague arrest warrant, is playing in the political field, he is still capable of making a few moves. For example, to annex Belarus after the departure of Lukashenko, who crawled to Moscow exactly on Friday in order to agree on the transit of power in Minsk, and at the same time to clean his body in the Central Clinical Hospital. In fact, the absorption of Belarus could be for Putin that salutary achievement, which could cover up the shame of defeat in Ukraine. The Kremlin would declare this reunification a victory over the West, and its retreat from Ukraine a historic defeat for Kiev, which will now lose its identity and be destroyed by imposing alien Western values. Moreover, Putin is not going to leave power anywhere. He plans to go out in the cave, devouring furry, at least until 2030. Well, in the meantime, Governor Gladkov calls on Prigozhin's Zhemyr office to protect the Belgorod region from saboteurs, the gang of the sledgehammer himself tightly grappled with the soldiers of Shoigu. And this looks like a prelude to the upcoming showdown of homegrown armies among themselves until, in order to avoid some kind of nuclear force majeure inside the cave, European peacekeepers come in on the one hand, and Chinese peacekeepers on the other. And they will not divorce the inflated boy in different corners of the cave. There they will remain moldy and smelly, each gang in the sector assigned to it. with the obligatory condition of timely payment of their share of reparations. Because we walked with a putlow rat for a good score with a lot of zeros. And it will take a long time to pay.